Okay, we're live on the air. This is the Producers Hangout, episode 17. The Day of Tribulation. Just beforehand, everything went to hell. So, I am Flux of fluxwithit.com, and with me today, I've got Silent Cypher of padbangers.com.
What's
Introduce
up,
yourself.
guys? What's up, guys? Mike here, patbangers.com. Let's have a good show.
And we've got Casey.
What's
Casey,
going on, guys?
what have you been working on lately?
Uh, been doing a lot of mixing. A lot of mixing. Aside from that, been doing some production, actually more than usual. So that's been fun. Nice little breakaway from the engineering stuff.
Okay.
I don't get a chance to do it that often.
So, before we even get too deep into the show, I'm just going to be upfront with everybody. Today's not been my day. I've had a lot of junk going wrong. So, if the audio's worse than normal, it's all my fault, and you can put it on me. So, I'm just putting it out there now. So, anyway, so we had some topics that we were going to discuss today about mixing in general. And one thing that I see as a reoccurring theme that comes up is how much mixing do you do at different stages and how important those mixes are at those stages, be it mixing while you're producing. So if you're working on a track, if you're mixing your sounds as you go, or if you are mixing like a rough track to send out to an artist, or if you are mixing a demo of artists that comes in, and how much time are you actually spending on the mixes just to get your ideas down versus how much time are you spending on separate mixes for finalized products and things of that nature. I want to start off with Mike over here and kind of get your thoughts on when you're actually producing. What's your usual mixing workflow?
When I'm in the producing process, I do as less as necessary because I want to sketch out my ideas quickly because I tend to forget melodies that I have in my head, so I want to lay them down as quickly as possible. And when I have like the raw beat, I'm gonna do some basic mixing, like EQing and compression, to make it all sound good enough to send out to the artist, so they can pick it. And if somebody picks a beat, then normally I start mixing on that beat again, and I prearrange everything so the artist has a long enough loop to ride on. And if I get the vocals, or if we record the vocals here, after that I spend a lot of time doing the final mix. And after that long time, we send it out for mastering.
And how about you, Casey? Like when you're working on your traditional role of engineering and mixing, are you doing different mixes at different points? Or are you doing it all as, you know, when you start mixing, it's all towards a finalized product?
Well, as far as like talking on productions, as Mike was saying, I do a little balancing, but I don't do a whole lot of actual mixing when I'm in the production phase. I mean, I'll balance things and send it off to someone, let them, that way they can just let me know if they're digging it, what they want changed, what they like, what they don't like, and I save all the heavy stuff for when he's happy with the idea, and then I export all the stems and I drag it in. But when it comes to the mix, it's just organization, man. Like that is key, dude. Like I don't know, there's no other way to really put it. That's how I start every session. I mean, as far as the whole mixing process, dude, it all starts with knowing what's going on in your session. And that all takes place, like the majority of that heavy organization takes place in the actual mix and not the production.
Now, are you a note taker? Like, do you
Yeah.
like to take notes as you're tracking and as you're getting ready to mix a product? Or are you are you keeping notes of everything, or do you tend to just memorize, or how do you like to go about it?
Tracking wise, I take notes of the best takes. Like, say there was a phrase in this take that I really liked, I'll type a couple words of that phrase so I know where to look in that when I start comping vocals. But as far as that, I mean,
Yeah, that's kind of when I'm tracking vocals, especially vocals, or if there's external instrumentation, be it guitars, drums, whatever. Something that I know that I'm going to be doing multiple takes of, and especially if I'm comping, like you were saying, like I tend to, I like to write things out. Like I always keep a journal as I'm working. So what I do is I'll have it, kind of like you said, like I'll usually go just a few words or whatever to kind of remind me of what happened at that point. I have a terrible short-term memory, like really, really bad. So what I'll do is, if I can remember specific things from each take, that'll jog my memory. That goes in, and then I'll notate things like, maybe there's a part that's a little overly breathy, or maybe there's a part that's the timing gets a little funky or whatever. I'll try to note that down, and if I can, I'll also try to note the time that it happens at as well. Especially if I'm tracking a song and it's going to go straight through or be an entire verse. Some guys they do like real short segments, and they'll do a couple bars and then move on, and then a couple bars, and I very, very rarely will do that. I really don't tend to like how that comes across, and especially if it's an artist who's going to be performing live. I've noticed that some people forget how difficult it is to perform live, and they'll overcomplicate their tracking procedures to the point where they can't reproduce it live. And I don't, I try to stay away from that as much as possible. I mean, I still want it to be an interesting mix, and I still want the production to grab your attention and do interesting things, but I want it to be in a way that, with 1 to 2 people, you can recreate that, So I'll try to notate, at different points on the timeline when things are happening. And I kind of do it shorthand too. Like I'll do it real fast. And as far as actually mixing those pieces down, if it's vocals, I tend to it's less about specifics as far as where you're at DB wise, and more about just from years of doing it. Like I kind of know where my hands are gonna be for like my dub and everything. So I just kind of like do it by feel really quick, and I don't pay super close attention to all the details. But I get that rough mix right there, and that kind of gets me in the ballpark of where I want to be. And then later on, a lot of the times when the artist isn't there is when I kind of want to dive in, because I don't like mixing with people over my shoulder.
Yeah, I don't like that either. I tend to mix better on my own, just because I have a weird way of feeling the vibe. I listen to parts over and over, and I don't think the client wants to sit there and listen to his first line, 20 times to, as I'm copying or whatever, to try and like create the perfect take. I just don't think they'd be interested in that. Plus, it's on their time usually, so I don't think they want to pay for me to do all that stuff.
Yeah. What about you, Mike? You recently track some MCs or something, or I thought I saw that you had posted something about that. You guys were recently doing a session. So when you guys start a fresh track, are you just kind of quickly doing it and then going back later, or are you mixing as you go?
No, I do the basic mixing first, and then when I'm alone and I have a quiet around me, and I can really focus on the track, I will finish it up and polish it up. And I don't like it to rush on tracks and to do it on the fly. I think that's also in all these sessions, your ears getting tired after a while. So I think during a session is not the best time to start mixing, or at least the finalized mixing.
Yeah, I agree because a lot of the times when I'm like when we're in song creation mode, a lot of the times I really enjoy feeling the music and the vibe and just getting it really loud and like louder than I care to admit, but I do like to work a bit loud when I'm in the song creation mode. But one thing that I really can't stand is if I'm even doing a rough mix, especially if it's a finalized mix, but it happens more often with rough mixing because a lot of the times people just want something that they can take with them as they leave. And I really, for one, I really hate doing that. I hate letting rough mixes out of the studio. I'm not a fan of that at all. So, I mean, unless it's like to A/B it on a separate setup or something. But even then, I have specific ways I like to go about it. But what I really don't like is if you're mixing in the room with the artist or other people, and you're specifically like working on something, so you bring a fader up and you're sculpting out a sound like a vocal piece or something, and you're constantly getting people talking in your ear about, oh well, I don't want it sounding like, and you're like, it's not gonna sound like that. I'm working over here, like,
Yeah.
That frustration level of telling somebody just to shut the hell up is something that I really get frustrated with very fast, and it really kills the mixing vibe.
They want things done quicker than you can do them. Like, can you just do this? And I was like, I was going to. Can I do that? Can I?
Yeah, I have to process. Can I get through my workflow? Yeah, that's another thing that I tend to do. Like, even if it's not a song. So if I'm working on like recently, I'm working on a bunch of demos for the Fine Line expansion that I'm putting out, and I want to do all the demos directly in Machine with no extra effects, no extra DAW, because I want people to have like an authentic sound of what it actually sounds like, right? So one of the things that I have to do with that is I gotta keep in mind, like, okay, well, if I'm only going to use what's in the box on here and I'm trying to represent something true, like, how deep do I really want to mix it? Like, I want it to sound good, of course, but at the same time, I don't want it to sound like trickery, So that becomes like a whole other thing where it's like, okay, well, I just got to use my regular workflow for when I'm doing something right before I go and try to polish it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I'm approaching that thing.
Yeah.
And I tend to do something very similar. Like if I'm working with an artist and I compose a piece of music for them, usually the piece that I give them is not an instrumental ready, like, standalone mix. You know what I mean? Like I tend to have it fairly rough, but gets the idea across, because the amount of time involved in actually sculpting out a finalized mix isn't worth it at that stage. You know what I mean? Like, if you get a decent sounding rough draft, but maybe your lows are kind of sloppy, or maybe you've got something, some maybe even some phasing or something. You got something going on that's just not quite right. I don't necessarily feel that it's worth my time to focus on that when I'm just handing it off to another artist, and then I'm going to have to redo that mix anyway because maybe their vocals clash with those frequencies and I have to scoop things out. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Do you have any, Casey, do you have any tricks as far as ways to get your mix time down?
You talking about the rough mix or final mix?
Final mixes.
Well, a nice trick, if I'm strapped for time, I usually, if I have time, I usually start with all faders down. But if time is an issue, I leave all the faders at unity, and then I play the track, and then things that stick out that I don't like or that I think is too loud, I'll just bring those down, and I'll kind of get a rough balance that way, and then once I have that, and then I'll just drag every single fader down, just to give myself some headroom, and then I'll actually start the actual mixing process then.
Yeah, that's often pretty similar to how I like to do it. Do you ever use the pink noise technique for getting your levels?
No, I just use my ears, man, really.
Yeah,
I don't really.
I gotta be honest with you. I like it. I think it's a great technique. But I just about never do that.
Yeah.
So, and for those that are not aware, you can put pink noise across the track and bring each level to where you can just barely hear it, and it kind of gives you a rough idea as far as where your levels are going to be. To keep everything balanced. What about you, Mike?
I got two tricks that I use a lot and recently realized actually. The first trick is do some basic room treatment in your mixing environment. I realized this when I rebuilt my studio over here. It sounded like the Batcave, so it was all echo and going on. So I had to build some acoustic absorbers to get rid of those, and I did everything was like a DIY project. So I spent around $100 for 4 absorbers, and it instantly made my room and also my mixing better, even better than before the rebuilding when I thought my studio sounds okay for all that stuff. Now with the only installing 4 of those panels, my mixing got instantly better, and that's one trick. And another trick that I often use is reference tracks. Load in some tracks you really know into your DAW and compare them to the mix you're actually doing, and that helps me a lot.
Yeah, I think I'm also a really big fan of just hands-on mixing. I know that a lot of guys when they're doing mixing will use trackball or whatever to adjust. For me, you gotta have hands-on mixing. Like I can't mix one fader at a time. Like I can't do that. Like I need multiple faders. Like I'm usually mixing bare minimum like 2 faders at a time, because I'm always trying to work in relationship to each other. Getting sounds together, and it like especially with vocals. If I'm working with a vocal that has a dub on it, if I'm not able to kind of work with the faders together, like it just drives me nuts and it slows me down so much. I'm also not really a big fan of, like, I've been trying to use more touch surface as mixing. Like if I just want to try it out to see if I could save space, and I'm not a fan. Like I don't like looking down at everything that I'm doing. I like to kind of just feel it, and a lot of the times I close my eyes when I mix. So for me, the touchscreen mixers just don't do it.
Yep.
Have,
I really like the idea of the new digital mixers, where you have like a switch turning it from the recording faders into your MIDI control faders. So you have one device with maybe 16 faders, and you can use them for both, for the recording and the mixing at the same time. That's a really great improvement.
So another thing that I wanted to talk about was, and I'm bringing this up because it seemed to be a kind of specific. It was a topic that generated a lot of debate in the group, so I'm going to bring it up, and that is producers removing people's beat tags and producers basically taking other people's work and reworking it so that it's no longer protected in any way. And I just wanted to say, first off, I thoroughly disagree with the idea of it. If a producer has tagged an instrumental and then goes to distribute it, okay, and let's say he or she sells this piece of work to someone. I got to take it as what it is. So unless I'm specifically given authorization to alter that, I'm not doing it. And I need to have proof that, you know, some person owns this. Like, if it's legitimately a situation where, like, for instance, I have some old beats that are just on DATs that I can't really do anything else with aside from they're you know, they're just 2-tracked in. And if it's a situation like that and there's something that needs to be changed, that's one thing, but I want actual authorization on it. I'm not going to just blindly say okay to that. Have you guys ever had a situation where you've had someone ask you to do something unethical in your studio?
Well, I'll tell you right now, I just, not even 2 days ago, had a guy message me. I've worked with him before, so past client messaged me, and he said, here's the situation. I really like this beat, but it's sold. Can you remake it so I can use it? And I told him right off rip that wasn't really my thing, and I was like, but what I can do for you is take some of the same elements that are in that production and use those to create my own. Mm-hmm. And I think that I can make something just as good, if not better. So if you want to go that route, I'm down to go that route. And he agreed, and I just finished up the mix yesterday, submitted it last night. He messaged me this morning. He was ecstatic. He was like, this is awesome. You know, like, so I mean, I don't like to do that, man. I don't like to copy. You know, for one, it's not easy because you got to figure out notes, you got to figure out the key. There's so many factors that, you know, and I've attempted it, but never to sell it as my own, you know. But everybody's, I think, tried to copy maybe a melody line or something that they've heard before in some song.
I think interpolation in that way is I don't really have an issue with. If you were trying to recreate the vibe of something or get in the ballpark of something, that's one thing. If you are outright taking somebody's work and then removing any kind of protection that they have, or even if it's let's even say let's say the original artist intended it to have these tags on it, sold it, and now that the person that you sold it to is saying, I don't want that on there, that kind of changes the agreement of how they sold it also. You know, that can be something very sketchy as well. You have to watch out for that as well. So in regards to that, yeah, I won't do that, but I'll certainly interpolate certain things, because I do that when I also, if I'm just making a beat in general, a lot of the times, let's say I make a sampled beat, but I actually want to be able to use it for something, a lot of the times I'll create the entire beat, and then when I'm done, I'll say, okay, I'll remove that sample and I'll try to recreate that sample as close as I can, you know, and change it up just a little bit, but there I go. And so to me, that's not quite nearly the same thing as actually trying to do something where you're either bilking somebody out of their money, or you're in a situation where you don't know what the consequences of that could be, you know, down the road. So I feel like today people need to, with the access of what certain software tools that we have can do, I think you really got to be careful with straddling that ethics line. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do, but are they right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I had a mix, and I sent it over to some guys, and this happened like 3 times before now. So I got an answer from them and said, yeah, the mix is okay, but we need some more improvement here and there. And I sat in front of my computer and I listened to it again. I was like, I don't hear these. I don't hear what you're telling me. The snares are not too loud. They're just fine. And then after I got them on the phone and I talked to them for a couple of minutes, I was like, on what device are you listening to the mix? And they were like, yeah, I'm listening on my phone right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, how can you tell on a phone that this is a proper mix, you know? And I spent like 2 more hours on it for finding mistakes and do some mixes, you know? And that's another issue. People sometimes they don't understand that a phone is not a proper device to get feedback for a mix.
No, definitely not. And even furthermore than that, realistically, even if you have decent earbuds coming out of a phone, it's still not, you know? That when I get feedback in that way and I know it's for it's coming from a situation where somebody's doing something silly like that, I'm extremely blunt. I'll tell people to their face that they're just stupid. Like I'll be like, listen, man, because you know damn well that the guy knows that that's not a good way to go about it. But you're just being lazy. Like, don't listen. If you want me to do my job properly, you know what I mean. If you want me to put my effort into this, don't be lazy back. Don't take something that was hard work and dedication, and then just piss it away because you're lazy, and then end up making us both look bad. You know. So, like that's a major gripe that I have when people come into the studio, like. That are new to recording, and they come in and they're not actually prepared. Like, I try to tell people, listen, you should be able to perform your song like with no hiccups already before you even come in to see me. Like,
I wish.
That is like my number one thing that I tell people, like, beforehand. I want you. If you don't know it that well, then how are you gonna perform it that well? Vocals are just like any other instrument, and if you've never played the song before on guitar or on piano, and you have to play it now under pressure and record it, and it's gonna be that way forever. Once you step away from that, well, why would you not practice it? You would practice it. Same with vocals, you know. And I get surprising amount of people who think that it's. Oh, I'm fine. I can just go. No, you can't. Trust me, I've heard you. So that to me is like pet peeve number one. I mean, I also wanted to bring up conventions, lectures, and just industry events as a whole, and ask you guys, furthering your education. I know Casey's still in school now, but outside of that, how do you guys feel about the lecture circuits and the conventions? And do you guys try to attend any of those? Do you go to like AES, NAMM, anything like that?
I go to Gear Fest, or I try to go every year, because it's right down. It's a few hours away, so that's like the closest one to me. I don't really like hopping a plane to go to some event. Unless there's a specific reason for me to go, like if there's somebody there that I'm trying to connect with, but I think there's plenty of networking opportunities in your own backyard where you don't have to go to these huge conventions to think that that's where you're gonna meet somebody and you're gonna make your big break there. People need to realize that music is everywhere and people are doing this everywhere, and only maybe a fraction of the people that are doing music are going to these conventions. But that's not to say that you won't meet some good people if you do go, but I just don't think that they're a necessity as far as learning and networking in this field.
How about you, Mike?
We don't have that much events here in my local area, but I go to Musikmesse, of course, which is like the NAMM in Germany. And of course, I subscribe to a lot of those tutorial sites like Machine Tutorials, Groove Free, Lynda.com. I have subscriptions for everything there, and I do at least one DVD tutorial in a month. That's my goal. Besides from all the design tutorials I have to do for my job, when it comes to music, I try to do one tutorial course at a time. If it's about mixing, if it's about synthesis, if it's about a new DAW or plugins, I don't care. I wanna and I have to learn as much as I can, because stuff. Every time you get new updates, you have to reinvest more and more time to learn new features and stuff. And with all these tutorials, they make it really easy. So you don't have to discover everything by your own. So they teach it really to you, and I think that's a great thing. And it wasn't never easier than in this time to learn new stuff.
I think another thing is I personally I'd like to go to as many events as possible. If I can make it there, I'm trying to go there. Just because, so like NAMM, AES, events like that, you're gonna get some really top-notch people, usually having interesting discussions, and just actually talking to people off of the floor, off of like a little bit removed from the convention centers and things. If like say you go out to lunch with somebody or something, you can learn a ton. Just talking to certain guys that are really specialized in their field, you can learn some really interesting things. So I like going, like for instance, I love NAMM, and I love it for all the reasons. I mean, I love the gear. I love meeting the people. I love the connections, all that kind of stuff. But on top of that is, at a lot of the events you have they'll have classes that you can go to, and they'll be scheduled up and sit in on, and you can find some great things with that. But luckily nowadays, with everything getting better as far as the internet, a lot of these events are streamed. So you can go and see Prasanas's booth at NAMM, and see a lot of these courses that they're doing, see a lot of the things that they're teaching live on the internet for free. So I absolutely love that as well. And like you said, there's Linda, there's machinetutorials.com, there's all these other avenues that you can go to online now to really get a ton of information. Pensado students. There's just a ton of resources out there now. And I think it'd be kind of crazy to not utilize that stuff as much as possible. I don't feel like, I mean, you could be, 90 years old, been doing this all your life, and I think there's always going to be more things that you can learn about. And especially depending on what you like to do. Like, not everybody does the same thing, Like, I may or may not be working in sound design one day, mixing a different day, doing some synthesis work, the next day, consulting on a product the next day. So there's always something different to learn. And if you're trying to make your own way and make your own money in audio in general, I think that being well versed is really important.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, we're gonna cut the show just a tad bit short. We started a little bit late. We're gonna end a little bit early because I need to figure out what happened to my microphones, and I gotta. It's gonna be a rough day, and also there's football today, so I'm very interested to see a lot of teams lose today. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for being on the show. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, join the Producers Hangout Facebook group. And if you got any questions, comments, whatever, hit us up on there. We're more than happy to talk to everybody and kind of keep things moving. So anyway, this is Flux of FluxWithIt.com. I'm going to pass it off. Mike?
All right, thanks, guys. Good show. For all the guys in the Producers Hangout Facebook group, we will have a new remix contest coming up. I won't lift the secret now, but about Wednesday we will put up a teaser, and we have some good stuff coming for you. Also, on my channel over at Pat Bangers, there's a giveaway for a mod audio. Check out the Dog Waves review video, and you can win those sounds. Pretty cool sounds. And yeah, that's it.
Casey.
Yep. Thanks for having me again, guys. It's always fun. Anybody needs anything audio related done, hit me up. www.fixthemix.net, and have a good one.
All right, guys. So we're gonna be signing off, and I was telling people on Twitter to just kind of keep their eyes peeled. So share these videos around, and I'm gonna randomly pick somebody to get the Fine Line expansion for free.
Ooh,
So
really cool.
share that around. So, all right. Peace.
Peace out.
Peace.